Hi there, and welcome to the Pearls from My Mom podcast. Every mom has special pearls of wisdom she passes on to her kids. In this podcast, we'll be talking about those pearls of wisdom, as well as the life lessons that our moms have passed down to us. We will be sharing to keep the legacy alive. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Pearls from My Mom, the podcast. My name's Jessie, and I'm your host. Very excited to be with you today. Just want to take a quick second and thank everybody so much for downloading and tuning in to Pearls from My Mom every week. I really appreciate just the fact that you're listening out there is amazing to me. I would love it if you'd interact with me on the social media. So I've got, the Instagram, Twitter, Facebook group, all that other kind of stuff. So I will give you my details at the end, and please feel free to connect with me. That's what makes this so amazing for me. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and I think you're really going to enjoy our show today. I am with a really special lady. Her name is Kelli Belt, and she is a mom. She's an entrepreneur. She actually started a business with her mom called Then and Now Double Takes. It's a photo business. It's really cool, and you don't have to be local to order with her, so I can have her talk about that at the end. But for now, let's say hello to Kelli. Hi, Kelli. How are you?
Hey, Jessie. I'm doing good.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so happy that you're here.
Well, I'm thankful you had me.
Perfect. So we're going to jump into it. Of course, you want to tell us about your mom, and we want to hear all about her. So why don't we just start off and have you tell us a little bit about your mom? What kind of person she was, maybe what she did, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, great. Okay. So I was trying to think about that. My mom, first of all, she had 4 kids. So she was busy.
I was going to say busy, probably the best word for that.
Exactly. Yes. And for almost the whole time I can remember, I think I was 7 when she opened her own Mexican restaurant. And so she worked a lot. But because it was her own business, we were all involved quite a bit. And so she was very active in church. If there was something that she enjoyed doing, she was very passionate about it. She liked teaching Sunday school to teenage girls, like 7th and 8th grade girls were her favorite. She was, I'm trying to think the best way to describe her. She was never held back from getting her hands dirty with whatever that looked like, whether that was in relationships or just helping. She liked to be connected to people. That was probably her favorite thing. And so I didn't realize until after she was gone. There were so many things about her that I didn't realize until after she was gone, when I kind of started doing this self-analysis of why am I like that? And kind of discovering along the way things that she did, maybe that we didn't even realize that she'd done. She was kind of silly about things, like she was a fanny pack wearer. She had
all back in style now these days.
I know. Which is hilarious. I bought one actually that has pizza. I think it has pizza on it, but hers are just plain black. And they had a pocket for everything. And so I try to think about sometimes, because Facebook had just kind of started kicking off. But I always think of how would she be with Facebook right now? Like, I think it would be her thing. Like, I think she would love it. Anyway,
well, yeah, she loves to connect. She'd be all up in Facebook.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. She sounds like she was like a really great role model for you. I mean, number one, first of all, we didn't even talk about this, Kelli, but the fact that you grew up with a mom who owned a Mexican restaurant, that's phenomenal. Like, do you love Mexican food? Are you into Mexican food?
I can't hardly live without it. Yeah.
I know. Well, that's amazing.
She and she taught us to be hard. I mean, she was a really hard worker. Like, I can remember her coming home and she would prop her feet up, and that's when she would count the deposits. So she worked. Like, she would work at the front, So she taught us to be really hard workers. So I started working there when I was 13. Of course, being the teenager, I was the one scheduled to work all weekend. And so, but yeah, I tell my husband does not like Mexican food. And I'm like, listen, I don't like every day. I could eat it every day. That's how I
me
grew
too.
up. Yeah. So, but she also, after I was out of the house, she really began to, be interested in like real estate. So she flipped houses. Like she would like to get in and do the work of like painting and that kind of stuff. And so she had a lot of rental property. So yeah,
She was just like a
she was
real,
an
like an
entrepreneur.
old-fashioned go-getter. Like,
Yes, and an entrepreneur. She like, I mean, like she always had an idea. Like I think about some of the ideas like she had created, like she didn't really create it, but she had this idea of swimsuits for handicapped people that would or like elderly people that could Velcro on and off, because she had some physical ailments, and swimsuits were hard to get on and off. And so she was just like, this is ridiculous. Like you should be able to wear a cute bathing suit without having to, She just had inflatable dog steps. I mean, she would just come up with all these. I could envision her also on Shark Tank now as well, like with something.
yeah, for sure. Oh, that's awesome. Well, like I said, that's an amazing role model for you, and I think that's awesome. And I know you're an entrepreneur. I mentioned it in the intro that I definitely want to give you a chance to talk about the business that you guys started together in a bit. Now, it's interesting because you said there that you learned a lot about her after she passed away, and that's a running theme that I've heard a lot of people say, and I would say the same thing about my mom. So number one, let's get some context. How long has it been since she's been gone?
So she passed away in January of 2012.
Okay.
So 5.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's good for us to know. So tell us a little bit more about learning more about your mom after she passed away, and more about how that relates to you as a person as well.
Yeah. So there were a lot of things like people. Well, it started more like people reaching out to us. She had battled ovarian cancer for right almost exactly 4 years. She was kind of funny about that, quirky about when she got diagnosed. She like looked like she knew how long like the statistics were for remission and all of that, and she literally passed away within like 2 days of the actual of her actual diagnosis. And statistically, statistically, people with ovarian cancer live at this stage, live at 4 years. And she she was like, it's like one of those things where we were just like, of course you did. You're so stubborn, and but people can't. So people knew she had been sick for a while. They kind of followed her story on. We had like a Caring Bridge site, and anyway, they just like were, oh, did you know this is what your mom did for me, or this is why she was special to me. I mean, like, just some really interesting conversations, like of people like we didn't even realize. Like my brother ran into someone who it was some time after she'd passed, probably a couple of years, and he was just like, I'm in like real estate now because your mom's the one who encouraged me. Like, and it was like just random. I mean, it wasn't someone she like had like an ongoing relationship with. Like she might see him somewhere, and and so and lots of people like her Sunday school leaders and stuff. But after probably 3 weeks after she passed, right about 3 weeks, I had already committed to a mission trip to Haiti. Mm-hmm. And I was painting. I was actually in an orphanage, and I was painting, which, you're just like, I'd rather kind of be loving the kids, but here I am, doing this. And it like, there was someone, or the gentleman that gave her, at her funeral, that gave the pastor that spoke at her funeral, had talked about her servant's apart and being on mission trips, and her being the one, like, getting down on the floor and making sure there was no paint on the paint had, no one had dropped specks of paint or whatever. And like, I'd never known that part of the store, like that part of their trip. I think they had been in Mexico or something. And I found myself here in Haiti, and I'm on the floor, and that's exactly what I was doing, was like I was scraping that, like, oh, we can't leave this a mess kind of thing, like being like, it was definitely not the fancy job, like the job, like, oh, I'm the one who did this, it was and it just like hit me, like, all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, that's how mom did, or but I find myself too in lots of different circles, like helping, like trying to help someone, trying to get and there were people that would say, like, someone's house had caught on fire, and mom was the first one that showed up with like basic things like toilet paper and those kind of things. There's just a lot of little things in our, like, in community, that I realized she passed down to me, that I had zero clue until she was gone. Like, I made zero connection to that.
Well,
So and that's,
you can see that now.
Bizarre. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that sounds amazing. It sounds like you guys are really close. Now, so you started working with her at the restaurant when you were 13. I know that you ended up starting a business together later on. So you guys must have been really close, right?
So that's interesting too. I was the only girl, and I think I was probably enough like her that there wasn't, like, I think everyone can kind of have their own definition of close. I would say close, but I would definitely say that I was not the funnest person to be around, I'm sure, for her. I mean, just like, there were a lot of things, I mean, just laying this out there, being honest, there were a lot of things that got on my nerves both ways. Like, there were a lot of things that we would argue about that were just like, now looking back, they were stupid, but they were still annoying, like, but we did live in the same little community. We did talk every single day. Yeah, so I would say yes, we were absolutely close. I know when she got diagnosed with cancer, I made a commitment to myself that I was not going to lose her with regret.
That's awesome.
So like me just being hateful, like, I mean, that kind of was our relationship, like, the hateful teenage daughter, like, she was the one that kind of got the brunt of all that. And in 4 years, I can remember one time that I allowed her to see me kind of being irritated in 4 years. So like, I literally, I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to have any regrets, and I don't. So I think that was important to me. And I think knowing up front, going into the battle that we fought as a family, and as her, her fighting cancer, I think having that kind of squared away up front just made everything fall into place to some degree, if that makes sense. So.
Oh, definitely. I think that's all you can ask for, really. I mean, it sounds like, and I don't know if you've listened at all, but pretty much everybody I've talked to has had some degree of being a complicated relationship with their mom. And even me, I mean, there was like a solid year at least where I didn't talk to her because I was being a moody, well, I wasn't even a teenager. Right. I can't even blame it on being a teenager. I was like in my 20s, but whatever. Like, yeah, I mean, no, everybody has that. So I don't think, I mean, that's a totally normal thing. So it's not something to be upset about, but it sounds like, I mean, you didn't have any regrets in the end. And I think that's all you can ask for.
Sure. Yes.
So tell me, like, it's been 5 years. Were you able to talk about her right away with others?
Yes. So I think probably I think probably with her being sick, we almost kind of turned into this enmeshed family. It was like probably not healthy, because then once she was gone, it was really hard it was good in the beginning and when I say we, I'm talking about mainly my dad and my three brothers, and of course our extended family, spouses and children and stuff. But we were a great support for each other. We did a lot of things just to kind of process. So a couple days after the funeral, we kind of all got together, and we were at my mom and dad's house, and we went into her closet, and one by one, we pulled out her shoes, because she had money in her shoes. so, so I think, honestly, after she passed, I think she had money in the freezer and she had money in her shoes. And I'm thinking we found like a couple $1,000. And so
in the freezer?
Part of it was in the freezer, but there were a couple $1,000 in her shoes. And the only reason we found out is because she was doing cancer treatment in South Korea, and we were having a fundraiser garage sale for her. Mm-hmm. And she was like, "Do not sell my shoes. Do not sell my shoes." And we were like, "Mom, that's the weirdest thing. Like, you don't even wear these shoes." And so we knew, and it had been a couple of years. But we knew, okay, there's probably money in these shoes. Like, we're just gonna, and we just like laughed. Oh, we laughed about it. And so it was very healing. And of course, then we had this really funny story to talk about for everyone that we saw. Guess what we just did? We just cleaned out Mom's shoes. We found $2,000, like, and I have no idea. She did not pass that on to me. Like, I cannot hold on to cash like that. So, I don't know where she got that.
You're not tucking it away in your shoes or anything.
No, I'm not.
That is so funny. So, well, you mentioned she did cancer treatment in South Korea. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody whose loved one has
done that.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, because that's a huge part of our kind of our story. When she had done treatment and gone into remission, and when her cancer returned, she just kind of had some things fall into place with a couple of people that she knew that had gone. Strange connection, like a couple of different people that weren't like directly connected, but anyways, she just knew that that's what she was supposed to do. And so her and my dad packed up and went. They got there sometime right after Christmas of 2009. So they were there at the beginning of 2010. Mm-hmm. And basically she was doing a treatment, which now actually, honestly, it seems to be really getting to, it was kind of like advanced treatment. So the U.S. is starting to look more into like stem cell treatment and genetic testing more and those kind of things a lot. But at the time they were not. But that they were in South Korea. And so she still did chemo, but she got healthy stem cells from like healthy donors, like that had donated their own stem cells. And so it kind of helped rebuild her system back up. And so I really, it was one of those things. So my mom was definitely a believer, a Christian, and she just felt like that was something that God wanted her to do. Now, she obviously didn't survive her cancer. So that's been something that's kind of been part of our faith journey as a family of like, what was the point of that, kind of, if that makes sense. Because what happened is she came home in March. So she was there 3 months. She came home in March, and then she got really sick again, and she went back. And because she did not like, she was kind of done with the way cancer treatment, like just a hospital feel. And there it was much more like a community almost. I don't know I don't really know how to explain it other than that. But anyways, each of us went and spent when I say each of us, my youngest brother, I have two younger brothers and an older brother. So all four of us spent about 2 weeks in South Korea with my parents while she was doing treatment. And so it was just kind of a very bonding time. I mean, I think none of us would trade it, honestly. So, but yeah.
I mean, you might as well try it, right? Like if you're
Right. Exactly.
I could
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I think that describes my mom. I think that her doing that was just like, who does that? Who just packs up and goes and spends 6 months in a foreign country, and she just was like, she was I mean, she was that person. She was just like, she was not, just because it wasn't the normal thing to do, didn't mean she wasn't going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's awesome.
she was a risk taker, and maybe that, that definitely just, I think there are a lot of people that have done a lot of things, because even in our family, even between the five of us, like things that we might have been more reserved about,
Mm-hmm.
just from stepping out and doing that. So anyway,
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that was a bonding experience for your family and you. What kind of, from any point in you and your mom's time together, do you have any favorite memories? Like what kind of favorite memories can you think of with your mom?
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think. That did just remind me of when there was a time when she first got diagnosed, I went and stayed in the hospital with her. I mean, that kind of, being the only girl, I fell very much into that role of the caregiver, like the one, I mean, that kind of stuck by her side in those kind of situations. And so, but I can remember staying in the hospital with her, and we had a DVD player, and we watched Hairspray,
Mm-hmm.
the musical Hairspray.
Like the new one,
And
the one that, not the one with Ricky Lake.
yes,
Okay, got it.
right. And we laughed so hard. No, it wasn't the new one. It was the old one, I think. It was the one with, but we just, I mean, it was just like one of those. So those times are some of my best memories. We watch, and another time, and we didn't do that. Like, that wasn't like our thing, like to sit and watch movies together. We were always both too busy doing things,
Mm-hmm.
And so, but while she was, probably that last couple weeks before she passed, we watched, or no, it was probably 6 months before she passed. We watched that one, Julia, is it Julia, the cooking show, the one with about Julia Childs, and the young girl follows her blog and learns to cook all her recipes. Or
Mm-hmm.
anyways, we watched that one. Yeah. So I think probably some of my favorite times is just her with my kids, my boys. She really liked being their grandma. I mean, that was probably one of her favorite things, is making the grandkids feel special. Mm-hmm. She would do like I forgot what she called it, but she would wanted to take them like for a day. The older kids so I have two older, a niece and a nephew, that are quite a bit older than my kids. And so they her and my dad took them on a camping, in an RV trip, but my kids were still small enough. They would just take them to the zoo, or take them to a pond to fish, or, so those things I miss a lot. Like the mothering thing, like the things that you would just say. I can remember right after she was gone, one of my boys being sick, and just going, who's calling to ask me all the questions about, how he's feeling. And, just moms do that. They just know to call and ask those things. And that kind of absence of having to let someone else fill those roles has been it's not been my favorite. It's definitely not been my favorite. That's what I miss the most, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. I could totally agree with you there. I used to call my mom every day, and it was always kind of, it was always bittersweet after she passed away, when my kids would learn something new, or my kids would do something for the first time. like immediately go to reach for the phone and then be like, no, I'm not, she's not there, So I know what you're talking about there. And you do have, my mom, I remember talking to her, we had a good relationship for the most, like I said, after that complicated period, we did have a really good relationship. But I think it
Right.
became so much better after I had my own kids. I don't know if it's because
Mhm.
I understood her more, or she just loved being a grandma, like you said, your mom did. But I think that really strengthened the bond with my mom and me. So knowing that your mom's gone now, how do you keep her memory alive with your kids?
So that we talk about it, we don't talk about her as much, but there's still like all these little things. So she was Mama Dawn to them. That's what she was actually Mama Dawn before she ever had grandkids. She had some college kids from church camp calling her that, and so she was Mama Dawn. And so we laugh sometimes about things. She when she was doing cancer treatment, her feet got neuropathy on them, so she was always nervous about the little kids like stepping on her toes, on her feet, and so she would kind of do this little scream thing, and we'd laugh about that. I laugh sometimes about the things my husband does. He is just like, him and my mom had like this love-hate relationship. Like, he just aggravated the fire out of her. Like our wedding at the pictures, as we were like running to the car, like as we're leaving, he had a can of silly string in his pocket and he took it out to spray everyone, and the photographer caught him like spraying it directly at my mom, like directly. And so that was kind of there, and she thought that was great. She just like, so there are things that he does that it's like hilarious. Like, he shops at Goodwill, and that was her thing. Like, she would hit every Goodwill. Like, she was a garage seller. So like, for her birthday this year, my youngest son and I went garage selling all day and then went to the Goodwill. It was just like one of those, like,
That's
this is how we're
awesome.
going to celebrate. Yeah. And so we do those kind of things. She always had to have she always had to have a bite of your food. Like, she might order like something really small, like if we're all eating at a restaurant, it's something really small, and then taste everyone else's, because she couldn't decide on one thing. And so, a couple of years ago, I was asking my husband for a bite of something, and he was just like, "Okay, Mama Dawn." I mean, like, oh, so
Well, she
just
sounds,
those funny little things like that.
yeah, for sure. She sounds incredible. She sounds so fun. I would love to garage sale with your mom, like, or go to Goodwill with your mom. She sounds like a hoot.
Well, and you know what's funny though is I didn't enjoy it. That's the part that, like, I don't, like, you look back and think, why didn't I, like, growing up, I was just like, I don't want to wear garage sale clothes, like, just life changes your perspective on things, on how you see it now, like, what does that matter? What do clothes matter? Like, as far as brand name or any, they don't. And so, yeah, I enjoy it now. My youngest son, like, there's so many things. Like, I don't know if you do that. Look at your kids and go, that's just like my mom. Like, I can't believe you enjoy that, or you like doing it like that, or you said that, or
Oh, for sure.
things that you wonder, how in the world did they really get that trait? So, but
No, for sure. I can see it in some of the stuff my kids do and some of their, just the way that they are. So I think that's awesome. That's, kind of how we can see the legacy being passed down. So I think that's important.
mhm.
Now, of course, the show is called Pearls from My Mom. So I always like to get people's pearls of wisdom. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a phrase or something that she said. But, is there a particular piece of advice or a pearl of wisdom that your mom passed down to you that has changed you or has affected you quite a bit?
I'm sure there are a ton, but one thing that keeps coming up, and I don't know that I still apply it, but I can remember her telling me all the time, this too shall pass. Like, put it in perspective. This is not gonna ruin your life, you know. I'm sure I'm the one she said it to most, because drama, so many things that I just, as growing up, was like acting like, life's never gonna be the same for whatever had happened, but she would always say, this too shall pass. And so I think with everything going on in the world, and just this life is hard. I think having to have that kind of perspective of realizing tomorrow's going to be better. If it's not, the next day will. It is going to be better at some point. So, and I think that in the grief, that part was really, like knowing that, especially in that first year, and in those first weeks, trying to think of how in the world you could talk about her without sobbing, or feeling like you could, that kind of pain would lift. Not that I miss her any less, but just that I can breathe. Really, the grief is that hard, just that you can, and being able to know, or to have it in perspective, because at the time, in the middle of it, you don't see that there's any way. Like, I can remember that first year not having any way to be able to envision how I could be in 5 years with her gone. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I always like to talk to people about their grieving process, not because I want you to relive it or anything, but I think if people are listening and maybe they're working through their own grief, I think it's nice to know that they're not alone. So, how has your grieving process gone? How are you doing with it? How has the last 5 years been for you?
Yeah, so the first year was it was just so hard. It was just like this. It was a lot of work just to take care of the daily tasks. It was just like this heavy grief. But then I felt like we hit those 1 year anniversaries. And I think because I pushed myself through it, I didn't just ignore it and go on. Like, I let myself have those moments of or those hours of uncontrollable sobbing, or those sentimental things. We did a lot of things, like right after the funeral, we went and spent some time down at a beach house as a family, just because that was one of her favorite places. A few months after, we took a trip together as a family, and a lot of those things just brought healing because we forced ourselves to do it, to push through it. Some of her traditional things, 1 year she was a Christmas sweater fanatic, which has been great because, those ugly Christmas sweaters are a big deal now. Like, as a matter of fact, my son wore one of her sweaters as a freshman in high school last Christmas and got them the ugliest sweater award. But 1 year for Christmas, we all put on she had so many. She got them at the Goodwill. So that we all, there were 25 of us in her Christmas sweatshirts and sweaters, and we took a picture, and so making myself do those things that I would rather just stick my head in the sand and skip over it and not acknowledge it. I can see now how embracing the really hard in the beginning has made the process a much healthier process, if that makes sense. I was an angry elf. When I got really sad, that's how it came, angry. The anger was immense. And I really never thought I would heal from that. I can remember thinking, I'm going to be mad at those doctors, forever, because, if I saw them, I could hit things, I could kick things, that would be and I don't feel that anymore. So I can see when they say the stages, that there, I mean, it's 100% true. But there's definitely no rhyme or reason to any of it, or to the things that would trigger it, or the things that, like, ridiculous things that can trigger it. And the interesting thing to me also was, myself and my siblings all did it different. Like, and it was kind of, that's how I realized, like, the healthy, like, pushing myself to go through the, like, the sentimental things and to embrace them instead of just ignoring them and trying to skip over them, like holidays and those kind of things. As ridiculous as we seemed, I'm sure. I had one brother that did not do that. Like, he like, more or less stuck his head in the sand. And so then 3 years after she was gone, 4 years after she was gone, he was being faced with the things, and it was irritating because I was like, why are you doing? And I realized it's because he was stuck in that part of the grief process that he hadn't pushed himself through. And so it was almost like he was grieving 4 years later, like I had grieved the first year. Does that make sense? Like,
Totally.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think some of that, just trying to embrace her being gone, like actually identifying the things, the gaps that she left, it helped. I don't know. I'm not even, like, talking through it right now with you is probably, I'm sure I've talked through it with people, but, like, every time you talk through something, you kind of get another little aha moment. Like, that's why that went like that. So,
oh, for sure.
I think that's what I'm realizing. I think it's been a lot easier to navigate those places, the gaps that she left, since they were identified so early. Does that, like, we identified, this is why this sucks. This is why this hurts. I mean, this is why we don't want to do this. Oh, it's because that's what, okay, so now what are we going to do instead of just avoiding whatever it was? So
I think that makes total sense. I think, and like you said, everybody is a bit different in their grief. But if let's say somebody out there is listening and they're, trying to work on their own grief, what would be, like, one thing that you think? I mean, I'm not putting any pressure on you or anything like that, but, like, what would be one thing that you could say to them that you think might help?
I think journaling.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of, I think talking. I mean, I realize, I guess there are people who don't heal by talking to other people, but I don't really believe it. I don't know. I think talking through it, like, just having that person that knows that it's never off limits, like, you're gonna talk about it and just talk, and you don't necessarily need someone to talk back to you. They just need to listen. So I think that would be the biggest thing, because I think sometimes we just have to get out of our own minds, because so much of it we can turn it on ourselves. We can, beat ourselves up about things, or, just, I think it can just get distorted. Your grief can get distorted, if that makes sense, because you can kind of talk yourself into thinking you're not normal, or, like, it didn't make any sense, some way you feel, or, there's been a lot of things that, talking through, and that's probably been the good part about my family, is us talking through those things, is, we're able to call each other out on, no, that's not really how that went, or, just processing it. Mm-hmm. So, and I would even say, if you don't have that person, find a counselor, find a counselor that you can just talk through it, so that it doesn't, because I also think in grief, because I've walked through some other grief recently in the past year, you can develop some really bad habits. Mm-hmm. And even when you're not, like, officially grieving anymore, those negative patterns of how can affect all areas of your life still. So
I'm a huge proponent of, like you said, if and like even, my husband, I could talk to him forever. I could, but like I don't want to put all that on him. So, get yourself a therapist. Like
Right.
I'm a super huge proponent of that. And I think that it's
Right.
helpful because sometimes you do feel like, oh, this is weird. Like it's weird for me to think this way, or like, how could I have this emotion or whatever? And then you talk it over with somebody and they're like, yeah, that's super legit. It really does help. So I think you're right. I think that's great advice. So
Yeah.
now, just to kind of wrap it up, I always like to ask this question, and some people think it's weird. Actually, nobody's really thought it's super weird yet, but I'm curious what your relationship is with her now that she's gone. Do you feel like she visits you? I mean, how do you stay connected to her now?
That is, I hadn't really,
Like
sometimes we like say, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, some people, like I've had a few dreams about my mom and I wake up, I feel like I've just seen her. I'm like one of those people,
Right.
when I see like cardinals, I'm like, that was totally my mom. Like,
Right.
I know it's a
Right.
little weird, but somewhat spiritual and things like that. So I'm just curious. I'm always curious if I'm the only one that has that.
No, I definitely have. I dream about her in strange, like I dream about her a lot. I did a lot more the first year, but I'm trying to I know that I know I have a specific example that would probably fill in great that I just am not thinking of right off the top of my head. My dad, though, told me this week that he had a dream about her. And it's funny because we're just like, yeah, that was mom. Of course it was. We joked when she passed away, because we were all being completely, I mean, we're grown adults, but we were like losing our minds, like 5-year-olds who, like we were being ridiculous. But we literally had brought her home. We were beside her the whole time, like literally holding her hand beside her. And we literally had just walked into the kitchen, like one by one. The last person had just walked into the kitchen because we were talking about breakfast. We had no idea that she was like that close to like leaving. And we come back in and she's gone. And we were like, what we're like cussing her, like, of course she did. She was just like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. Like, I don't want it, or, like, I don't want it on the one person who, didn't, it be them that was there with me or whatever. So we were just like, okay. She was like, okay, finally, they're all gone. I'm out. So it was just, but, I don't know. I am, a believer. And so I definitely think that there's going to be, a time that I'm going to see her again in heaven. And so I think that's what I hold on to. So, and I definitely, there's definitely times I'm just like, Mom, why, look what you did, those kind of things. So
I think that's totally normal. And I think I think it's great that you have, a picture of her and that you've got that faith to hang on to. So,
yeah.
there in heaven, I think that's awesome. So, real quick, Kelly, I talked a little bit about it in the intro. You guys started a business together, you and your mom, and it's called Then and Now Double Takes.
Yes.
Right? And it's a photo. So I looked at your website and I think this is super cool. Like, I'm definitely going to have to get one of these. But I guess you could probably explain it better than I do. But I just want to say it's like really cool. Like, you can take two photos and kind of like mesh them together, not in like a weird.
Yes.
You describe it. You describe it.
Right. Exactly. So we always would say, it's kind of like what you would think about used to say it, now it's everywhere, but like a Cracker Jack box card, like you look at, like you turn it this way and you see one picture and you turn it that way and you see the other, like kind of thing. And so, yeah, I take any two photos. My mom would always say, so her favorite one, and we had talked about this. I wore her wedding dress, which was like, I made her life by doing that. I had it altered a little bit off the shoulders, but so I have her black and white wedding photo and then my wedding photo. And so the way I was able to kind of line them up, so you look at it from one angle and you see her and you move past it, like two steps to the right and you see me. And so, that was really fun for her because she got to say, people would look up and go, "Oh my gosh, she looked just like your mom," and so I couldn't deny it because there were all these strangers, telling her how much I looked like her. So she loved that. She loved it a lot. So
that's phenomenal, by the way, that you wore her wedding dress. Like my mom was a hippie, so like her wedding dress was like a peach flowered dress that she made herself.
Yeah.
And I didn't wear that. And then I would love to have saved mine, but at the end of the night, in my wedding, I spilled red wine all over my dress. But that's amazing. So that's a really cool picture, and they can actually see that one on your website, I think, right?
Yes.
That's so so this is something that like I could order from you and you could send, right?
Yes, exactly. I just try to make it as easy as possible. The website has where you can upload photos. Most everyone, when I started, which was over 10 years ago, it's been, I think, 12 years ago, there were still a lot of people that didn't know how to scan a photo. We weren't as digitally, now people, even because they have so many easy ways to put your old photos to make them digital, scan them in, have them on your computer. So you can email them or mail me photos, and then I send that finished photo back, and you put a frame in it, or put it in a frame, and they're really fun. They're really fun gifts, because I had someone that gave to her mom, which was, when I say her mom, probably someone in her 80s, a photo of her mom and dad when they were young, married, and then her mom and dad, like their anniversary picture, and her dad had passed. And so she gives this to her mom, and her mom thinks when she opens it, she just thinks it's a normal picture. Mm-hmm. And so that's the power of it, is being able to put all that it's like it brings it all together.
That is so cool. So yeah. I'm sold. I want some of these. So how do people get a hold of you? What's the website? Give us.
Yeah. So it's Then and Now Double Takes, like THEN, and then ANDNOW and Double Takes with an S at the end.com. Everything's right there to order through the website, or I'm also Then and Now Double Takes at yahoo.com as an email. So there's a way to contact me direct through the website too. So.
Okay, perfect. So I'll link that up on at the bottom of the show notes that I do
awesome.
every week. So I am so happy that you came here and chatted with me today, Kelli. Well, came here like you're there and I'm here, but you get it.
Oh, came together.
That's right. I'm so happy that you did this, and it was so nice to talk to you. Your mom sounds like she would have been super fun. Like I said, I would have gone Goodwilling with her, and I definitely Mexican food with her. Because that's cool. And it sounds like you're doing really well, and you've got a lot of really good advice. And so I just so appreciate you coming on here.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. I think it's been, even 5 years later, it's helpful to spend some time just being able to honor her life and her legacy. So, yay. Thank you.
Yay.
Yeah, yay.
Well, that was super fun chatting with Kelli. And I think that there are a lot of really good things that we can learn from Kelli's mom. I think the one takeaway that I really enjoyed from that is to just live your life and just go for it. She said her mom wasn't afraid to go for things. And I think that is an incredible quality. So I'm really appreciative for Kelli for coming today. And if you do have a chance, you should really check out her website. It is very cool. This picture thing that we were talking about. Her website is thenandnowdoubletakes.com. I'll put the link in the show notes there. It's really cool. And if you're my family, then you probably know what you're going to be getting from me for Christmas. So go check that out. Very cool stuff. If you're enjoying the show, thank you for listening, first of all. If you're enjoying the show, I would love it if you could do a couple things to support me. One thing would be to share amongst your friends, and especially if you know somebody that's, in the same situation, they're grieving, they've lost their mom, share the show with them. There may be a nugget or two in here that would help them along the way, and that is the whole entire reason I started this thing. And if you or anybody that would like to be on the show, please feel free to get in touch with me. I would love to have you on talking about your mom. So definitely do that. I'll give you all the contact info in a second. If you've been listening and you feel like you want to rate the show, You can go onto iTunes and you can, give us the 5-star rating or, whatever you want, but 5 stars is always good. It helps. There's an algorithm, blah, blah, blah. It's like a whole thing. Anyway, it would be really nice if you could go on and rate and just take a few seconds to do that. And other than that, you can, tell your friends, share it with them. And I would love to connect with you more. So I've got a Facebook page, Pearls from My Mom. I've got a Facebook group. It's a small private group, very small, very small. And it's just to continue on conversations like this, in a safe space where there's no trolling or anything like that. So if you or anybody would like to join that, you just shoot me a message. I would be happy to put you in the Facebook group. You can hit me up by email. My email, I have 2 emails you can check out. There's one, pearlsfrommymom@gmail.com, or you can do share, SHARE, not share the singer, at pearlsfrommymom.com. My name's Jessie, and you can find me on Twitter at Pearls from My Mom, Instagram at Pearls from My Mom. Either way, come connect with me. This is the whole reason I started this podcast, and I'm just so thankful that there are people out there like yourself that are listening. So thanks again for listening, and as always, keep sharing to keep the legacy alive.